Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about Philip K. Dick's short story called The Gun, which was published in 1952. It's about a group of astronauts who, upon discovering this strange, desolate planet, then their ship crashes onto this planet when they're shot down by this big, mysterious gun that's described as like seemingly having a life of its own. It's like the revolver is described as having these pulsing veins. It's very creepy. And then beneath the gun is a tomb that buries all of these ancient artifacts, which artifacts that are left over from presumably when the planet was hospitable, when it was filled with life. And this is where it's a little bit baffling to me, because they decide, for whatever reason, which seems a little bit greedy, to take the artifacts with them to their planet. And then they before leaving, they destroy the gun so that it won't shoot them as they're leaving. But then after they leave, shortly after they leave, the gun forms, it reconstructs itself on its own, and all the technology, through this strange technological process that we don't really understand, we can't really explain, and that brings this gun back to life. So one thing that occurred to me as I was reading this, which I don't really think I've touched upon enough, is some of, I think, the shortcomings in the writing, coupled with many of the good things, many of the things that are powerful, that make him a very influential storyteller, and which is that I think that at its core is something very rich, something brilliant. Creates a world that is very special. It's very unique, as you can see, but I think it can sometimes be, I think, glazed in this sort of very dry exterior. The dialogue that can sometimes be plodding and lacking in a whole lot of life and a whole lot of personality. And I think one of the reasons why this occurred to me is, well, a couple things. Is that one, I the other night I was actually watching a television series that was based on Philip K. Dick's writing, and one of them was like taken directly. The script was taken directly from the story. Nothing was. I don't believe anything was adapted or modified. And that's when it occurred to me, when I was in, I guess, not so much in literary mode, but just in, the mode of just relaxing, having a good time evening. I noticed that the dialogue was quite bad, and so then when I went to this story, particularly when I noticed the exchanges between the crew members, and as they're navigating through all these artifacts, and they're looking at them and looking at the gun, and it's very sort of, I guess, bland and generic. However, though, he creates something that does remind me, as I've mentioned before, of something that you would have in my case, in a lucid dream, when you go into a new world and part of you is dimly aware that it's not real, but you want to keep going, you want to keep exploring, because you have that sense of invincibility. You know that nothing can really hurt you, and you just want to embrace that sense of wonder. And I guess the next point that I wanted to make is something that I actually noticed in Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, which to me is like, that's the truest manifestation of that's like the quintessential science fiction novel. And I can see how the spirit of that, the principle of that book, of what brought it to life, that sense of, I think, something I believe I've talked about before, the transitioning from the more romanticism to more of this gritty and kind of almost a foreboding warning tale. That sort of style, you making a stylistic shift. That spirit that you see in science fiction really remained active. It was alive for generations and generations, but I feel, however, that certain stylistic things began to degenerate. And I think that morbidity, that gritty realism, is certainly something that you see in Philip K. Dick's story and throughout many of his stories. However, as I've mentioned earlier, I think I think because Philip K. Dick, like many other sci-fi writers, have identified sci-fi so much with realism, and moving away from the moving into, I think, which is, I think, sometimes a too prosaic perspective and style. I think that can sometimes detract from it. But nevertheless, I do feel that there is something in the story that you have to decipher, that there is some kind of hidden message, and that's something I'm still continuing to contemplate and mull over and wonder what exactly is the meaning of this desolate planet. What clues is he giving us with this sort of story? So that's something I think to chew on and think about.